Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. Today is, or at the time of this video's release, it'll be my birthday, and as I typically do on my birthday, I thought I would do something a little bit more atypical. A casual discussion, so I just a video where I'm sitting here without a script and talking about a book that I think was influential within my background, to some extent at least. And the book I've chosen for this anniversary of mine is, as the title has already given away, the thumbnail as well, Therapy by David Lodge. It's among his more underrated titles, if I may say so myself, or at least that's the impression I get from a cursory glance at at the man's work and his reception. However, I still want to talk about it because because I think in hindsight, it actually did some things to me, did some things with how I assess and how I assess people and how I think of various things, and it is for that reason that I wanted to, talk about it, and I think I think a sizable part of why this book had the impact on me that it had is that it came at a very particular place, um, a continuous time of transition, more or less, and and in some ways, the book itself also describes such a moment, and uh, and it is really that reflection that that I think has allowed me a a broader sense of engagement with people around me that I wouldn't have had in other circumstances. I should first talk about what this book's about. Um, the main character is a perhaps quite obvious self-insert called Lawrence Passmore, if I'm not mistaken, also known as Tubby to his friends, because yeah, he is a little bit. He has rounded up a little bit. Has been living quite. Um, maybe not hedonistically, but he has. But he has been able to. Uh, has been able to keep himself steady. And he's a uh, off of his career as a television writer, and someday, not someday, one day he notices that he has knee pains. However, however, all physical evaluations of his knee prove that he doesn't really actually have anything. So instead, instead it could be uh, psychosomatic, or at least everyone assumes it is psychosomatic. So, despite protestations, he decides to go to a variety uh, of other therapy methods, or aside from physical therapy, physical evaluations, in order to find in order to find what would cause this level of his psychosomatic pain. And as he does so, he also encounters a bunch of books, a bunch of books by Soren Kierkegaard, who is a 19th century Danish philosopher, who could to some extent be contrasted with Nietzsche in terms of how they view morality. More on that later. And he finds plenty of solace within his work, and also through his regular therapy, he figures out that even though he was initially even though he was initially opposed to it, he discovers that there actually is something to it, and that something goes back to his adolescence. I would go a little bit further, but I'm afraid I might go into spoiler territory, and I'm not sure if I should. for those of you who are interested in reading this book based on what I've said so far, and don't want to be spoiled, put a I'll put a timestamp down there. Okay, so you'll know what section to avoid. Assuming the people who are wary of spoilers have left by now, he finds out that the cause of his knee pain is actually something that he has on a psychological level not let go since his high school days. He went to a very religious school, and as such encountered a lot of abuse that is unfortunately common in institutions such as that, and that kind of pushed him towards becoming maybe not a non-believer, but a less of a believer, as he. No, I think it's safe to say that that he has been an atheist at least since high school. He still went to that religious school because reasons, I guess. That was the only high school available, maybe. Anyway, he finds that his regrets is that his knee pain is basically caused by romantic regret, namely the fact that he couldn't seal the deal with his girlfriend of the time, or that he in some other way messed up that relationship. And holy fuck, why is this suddenly sitting that way? Okay. Yeah, I always have weird hair day. Don't ask why. Anyway, moving ahead. So he discovers that he finds that's his he finds that's why he finds that's what caused his issue, namely he's and decides to reach out to old to old school friends and remedy that, or at least try to engage with or at least try to talk it out with them, figure out what's been going on with them in their lives. And yeah, that's how the story goes, or at least that's how the main story goes, because there are various other side plots, such as his work as a writer, and how exactly he wants to close out a show's cliffhanger, or how he wants to handle it, and and also a lot of his the descriptions of the therapies he goes on, the various moments from his high school. I'm not exactly sure when he declared himself to be an atheist, but I can tell that his high school had him play King Herod, and at the time, or okay, he didn't really have to play King Herod in a nativity play, but the school did assign him a nativity play, and he basically cast himself as King Herod, and apparently did a good job at it too, for some reason, or at least that's the picture that's painted, and aside from that, there are a variety of other characters around him, friends, work colleagues, acquaintances, his wife. I forgot to mention her, but even though she ironically has quite little to do with the story, she is really just there because, he's married. That's kind of the expectation of the time, that he would be married. I don't recall if they have any kids, but I think they don't. Anyway, I think the spoiler section is is free by now. So what exactly is it about this book that wasn't even the most engaging of this author's bibliography that really stuck with me? Well, I think it is in many ways the fact that uh, the fact that he deals with characters, and he deals with them in a, in a somewhat effective and engaging way. The very book really is built around the uh, uh, deconstruction and then reconstruction of the lead character, and as such, there is a lot of and as such there is a lot of introspection and hindsight that goes into how he presents himself, how he thinks about himself, and eventually how he forms his opinions about other people, and how that influences his presentation or his his work in general, or even the ways in which he uh, relates to other people. And I think that is perhaps a story that has been very influential to me, and was and was somewhat meaningful for the time in which I read it. I read it in between the two, the two main segments of his life that this author touches upon. I was out of high school, but obviously I wasn't an old man at the time. I'm I'm not even an old man now, arguably. Um, I would be old if life expectancy were generally 40. No, I wouldn't. Or okay, dumb people would think I am. The point is, I read it in between these ages of my life, and aside from the influence of the age, I also had somewhat also had and it also intersected, at least, with the social influences around me, because when I when I came to Germany to study, I kind of moved from a post-Soviet suburban bubble into a more into a more small urban bubble. It was a little bit broader. I had more, there were perhaps more things that I could uh, look out for and or seek out for myself. But I still had a specific schedule, a specific set of constraints around which had to work, and that in many ways also influenced my reading habits, because throughout basically all of my schooling, my reading habits uh, were defined by what I was prescribed in school on the one hand, and whatever really caught my eye on the other. And for the most part, whatever caught my eye wasn't really the newest release. I wasn't really keeping up with new releases. I would just look at I don't know, whatever my uh, either whatever my parents had in their library, or whatever I'd been gifted, and went through it. For a long time, that was actually encyclopedias. So yeah, if I don't have the face of someone who read encyclopedias for the sake of it, well, you should know that I actually did that, or at least I did that as a kid. I don't do that regularly anymore. Though that would be a little bit interesting to, potentially do a review of an encyclopedia. I do have to find the right encyclopedia though, but that's beside the point. So yeah, after I was done with encyclopedias, with getting a say factual understanding of the world, I I then perhaps started to branch out and look into uh, looking into the possibilities that the world presents, or how other people consider the possibilities that the world presents. And as such, I started delving a little bit more such I delved not a little bit more, quite a bit more into fiction reading. But still, it was only either what my parents had in my library, what other people gifted me, uh, what I saw, and on the what I saw catching my eye on the random occasion where I went to a where I went to a bookstore, stuff like that. My reading wasn't particularly involved, and I was also kind of uh, switching around with visual media quite a bit. That's why I have an entire second channel that I can dedicate, maybe not greatly, but to a large extent, to that as well. And then when I went off to university, uh, well, I did have more possibilities when it came to media, or when it came to managing my own media consumption. A lot of those possibilities tended to flip much more towards the visual, and I started getting more acquainted with YouTube as a uh, as a replacement for TV, specifically because I could curate my own experience, and also I didn't have to follow any schedules, because and that was really helpful, because university was uh, kind of hectic, or rather it led to some uh, or it led to some moments where I've had to be a little bit more hectic, or where I've had to uh, arrange plans for various things without actually knowing how long those things would last. As I was getting to integrate myself within that community, trying to break out of my trying to break out of my out of the habits of my childhood bubble. So for that reason, aside from academic stuff, uh, reading kind of went on the back burner during my time during my time in university. This book is actually one of the few exceptions to that. Uh, I read it. I read it. When should I say? I think it's fair to say about 10 years ago, and so yeah, 20 years after this book was actually published, and and I have to say, seeing the author, uh, interact with, uh, interact in this moment of change, both with, both with people that he thought he knew, and whom he discovered uh, uh, have depths of character to them that he couldn't fathom initially, and also with new people, uh, and seeking to learn what it is that defined them. I think that I think that struck a chord with me, and it made me see. It made me break out of my shell. That's really the simplest way I can say. Uh, Even though it is somewhat inaccurate, because it didn't really break me. It didn't entirely break me out of my shell, but it showed me there is merit to it. There is, there is something to be said about reckoning with yourself, and and uh, there is merit in discovering uh, the the pieces of you that uh, that have an impact on you, and how it is they do, and how those pieces influence everything you're doing. And yeah, I can say I I probably always needed uh, this kind of story, or this kind of uh, this kind of account. Actually, I read it 11 years ago. Now that I think about it, but beside the point, I think I think having something that is more, casually deep, something that something that explores a a broad aspect, even if somewhat unwittingly, um, uh, or even if somewhat unwittingly, is worth it. And it is, and I think that can also be seen in the in the book as well. And given that, as I've said, the author, the author's self-insert finds finds solace or comfort by reading through by reading through Kierkegaard, who was actually maybe not a Christian apologist per se, but a lot of his philosophy is still based around the Christian faith and about what it would have to say about morality and on how and on how it's and how it can be and how it can serve as an underpinning for and how it can serve as an underpinning for a uh, for a good relationship to oneself and also towards others. Nietzsche, as an atheist, saw that good relationship to uh, oneself and others through more through art or through personal exertion. And that's what the uh, that's really what the Übermensch is really more or less about. Someone who is uh, someone who is uh, morally morally, perhaps even intellectually superior. Someone who seeks to uh, make their own way through life. It could be argued that Kierkegaard's philosophy follows a would follow a similar goal, even though his underpinnings are his underpinnings are a little bit different. And it is somewhat interesting that the artist of the story would resonate, or at least mentions resonating more with Nietzsche than with Kierkegaard. With Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. I I assume this is a kind of revelation that Lodge himself would have perhaps considered. However, uh, however, I can't really ask him that because he died at the beginning of this year. Oh well, R.I.P. David Lodge, and uh, thanks for this book, and thanks for the insights you have, in hindsight, granted me. Aside from this book, the only other book of his that I've read was The British Museum is Falling Down, or Has Fallen Down, and yeah, that was. And while this book does have its comedic moments, that book is much more comedic, and it also focuses on a character in a very different part of his life. Another uh, another self-insert kind of character, and yeah, it does have it does have its merits beyond the comedy. There is a there is some engaging narrativization going on, but beyond that, I haven't really read much else about him. I haven't really read his more notorious, his more influential work. Oh well, there is still time, and I do have a channel where I review books, so I might just go through them at some point. But until then, uh, I'll say that's all I have for now. So once again, or not once again, for the first time, thank you for your attention, and then once again, thank you for your attention. So yeah, thank you twice in a row. because I'm in a good mood that way. Um, if you've enjoyed this video, rambly and disconnected as it was, well then please like the video. Yeah, this way, like the video. Maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the book itself or to my reaction to it, or my thoughts on what it did to me, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My books, the first of my own Heir to the Empire series, The Next Generation and A Path Not Taken, are available at various book retailers under their respective master links in the description down below. Right past my social media links, which I'll suggest you check out, should you choose to. I also have, as I've already mentioned, a second channel where I talk primarily about narratives from visual media. So if you want to hear my thoughts on stories beyond the printed word medium, that's where you can go. If you want to hear more about my thoughts on the printed word medium, then I suggest you stay on this channel and go through my extensive backlog of book reviews with the occasional discussion, like this one thrown in, writing advice, and miscellaneous other topics, most of which will be connected to these, to these two, however. And yeah, that was all I had to say. Until next time, I'm Jonathan Taylor, and this has been the Heir's Lair.